R.O.V.E.R.S Collaborative Tribal Restoration Initiative is to help restore and bring back not only healthy trees, but also a new growth of trees to replace the old ones. Ever since I can remember, when the acorn season came, that was one of the main things that our family wanted to do, was make sure that they got their acorn crop in.
What they would do is just pack up the old truck and practically move almost, and have a campsite close to a grove where the acorns were plentiful, and we would stay 2 or 3 days, sleep there, camp out, and pick acorns all day long.
My aunts and my other cousins, we'd all be there, and being boys and being the youngest, we used to be climbing up the trees to shake them so that the acorn would fall.
Every time we picked, we ate the acorn and tasted it, you know. And since it tasted so good, we just continue to pick and eat.
That was the good old days, and today we still do that because it's fun. We laugh, we joke around, we sing as we're picking any kind of songs.
But now, I think a lot of that is not here anymore, meaning it's kind of hard to find really good acorn.
Tribal elders discussed how they were endangered, that the trees that were living were old trees, that there are no new young ones to replace them. And so they were very concerned that a very vital food source in our way of life was going to disappear.
When Vincent brought this up, I had to listen to what he had to say, because he actually knows far more about these emery oak groves than I ever do, even though I'm a trained forester.
Because of human intervention in the ecosystem, the introduction of cattle, and because of overgrazing, what used to be grassland becomes now filled with chaparral, and it chokes out the emery oak. So we have all different kinds of conditions, and then we also have the situation of the warming of the climate.
At this point, I use my forestry knowledge to think about, okay, well, what are some things that we can do on the ground to help improve the health of individual trees so that they start producing acorns? What are ways that we can treat the entire grove so that we get more regeneration coming back?
We pulled together kind of a collaborative advisory board consisting of elders and foresters and silviculturalists.
We basically have almost everything to learn. We're going to find out whether burning, how important burning is, and prescribed burns and prescribed fires. We're looking at diseases and pests across our populations to see if they're playing a role in affecting the survival and reproduction of these trees. We are going to look to see how important it is to exclude herbivores like cattle, deer, elk. And so we're going to learn a lot about these species.
Every step of the way we keep the tribes involved, and we're doing everything in a way that they think is appropriate and sensitive and beneficial.
The primary focus of the project, of course, is the emery oak. But hopefully, through the consultation and through listening to tribal members, especially the elders, who can remember how things used to be back in the old days, that the Forest Service would listen and begin to understand and see the responsibility of how they can take care of the land, just as we used to look at it in our own way.
In Arizona, the Forest Service has partnered with tribes to create the Emery Oak Collaborative Tribal Restoration Initiative, a conservation program focused on restoring emery oak habitat. The goal of the initiative is to ensure that this precious resource is around for future generations of Apache people.
Hello, my name is Kieran McAdams. I'm a biological science technician with the U.S. Forest Service here in the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area. Today I'm going to be talking about Pacific lamprey, and we're here at a possible juvenile Pacific lamprey habitat. Alright, a little look back into lamprey history. Pacific lamprey came about 450 million years ago to 360 million years ago, long before humans. Sturgeon came about 200 million years ago. Dinosaurs, salmon, humans. Pacific lamprey came around the time of insects and seed-bearing plants. They've survived through the ice ages, flood events, meteor showers, global warming, shifting of continental plates, and mass extinctions. Juvenile Pacific lamprey can be anywhere from the size of a dime to the size of a mechanical pencil. You can imagine adult Pacific lamprey in the summer and fall migrating up this very river to spawn, having babies, and those babies migrating back down this stream, burrowing into the sediment here and there, and making their way back to the ocean just like their parents to start the cycle all over again. These ancient fish species are super cool. Lamprey are long and cylindrical, almost eel-like. They lack the jaws and paired fins of true fishes, as well as they don't have scales and they don't have gills. They have an arrow-shaped dorsal fin as well as 2 additional dorsal fins. They have breathing holes instead of gills, an adaptation that has been long lost through history. Eyes, a nasal passage, and a light-sensitive spot on their forehead, as well as a really unique mouth. Pacific lamprey have benthic-facing suction cup mouths that can latch onto prey, rocks, and the sides of waterfall. Their mouths are very strong. Each of their mouths contain 12 rows of teeth in a circular formation, and what sets Pacific lamprey apart from the rest are their 3 anterior teeth right here. These are Pacific lampreys in all of their life stages. We have the lampreys pictured here, looking similar to how they are first born, and the middle juvenile lamprey stage pictured here and here. And up here, we have the adult lampreys. Juvenile Pacific lamprey live the majority of their lives in freshwater streams and rivers. For the first 3 to 7 years, these lamprey float downstream and burrow into fine sediment to filter feed, all without eyes or teeth. Within the last 6 months of their time in freshwater, the juveniles go through a dramatic metamorphosis and develop their eyes and teeth, as well as take on their dark gray to blue adult form. Just like salmon, Pacific lamprey are adronomous, meaning they live their lives both in freshwater and saltwater. After forming their eyes and teeth, Pacific lamprey migrate to the ocean. If you're wondering why you haven't seen Pacific lamprey in the wild, it's probably because they're nocturnal. Pacific lamprey choose to live in the darkest places. They live in the depths of oceans and streams and move upstream at night. In the ocean, they begin feeding on other fish. Lamprey are parasitic, meaning they benefit from harming other living things. Pacific lamprey latch onto other fish with their suction cup mouths, bite, and fill themselves with other fish's blood. They themselves are preyed on by sharks and sea lions. Pacific lamprey live in the ocean for roughly 1 to 2 years before heading back upstream to spawn. Thank you so much for listening to my talk on Pacific lamprey. I hope now that these fish are a little less mysterious.